I'd like to speak about 3 different topics. About spark plugs, about why our mobile phone is already our best key to mobility, and about Mike Tyson, which you probably all know. I'll resolve that later. So you all know that, I guess, right? You're all in the age that you know what this is. These are spark plugs, right? And I guess many of you know how to change them, right? At some point in your life, you maybe have changed them in your used car. Do you think the next generation, my kids, your kids, will know what that is? I don't think so. And do you think they are able, sorry, Mr. Denner, that's a part of your business, but it's also, I don't think they will need to change them. And why? Not just because it's the electrification that is facing the auto industry, it's simply because they will not own cars. They will not own those devices, and we heard it before, it's about sharing. Sharing economy is probably the most impacting aspect in our industries, in many of our life areas, and it's certainly impacting mobility and the mobility space. And for us, as an auto manufacturer with a very long tradition, this is certainly a huge influence and an impact on us. When you look at, and I think later on from some speakers you will hear also maybe some facts about that, for us, when we look into the future, by 2030 it is forecasted that about 30%, 20 to 30% of automotive revenues, miles driven, will come from shared services. That means people do not own those vehicles, those devices anymore. And today, we're selling cars to those people. So this is something we have to consider. So another aspect, coming from that is, that generation that is coming up now and the next generations, they have a different starting point when it comes to mobility. I'm going back again, when we were 18, what was the most important thing? Getting a driver's license and getting a car. And that was our expression of freedom. That next generation, they're already around here and they live already. Their expression of freedom is a full data plan with unlimited access, 24/7 access, at any point in time, at any place. And driving a car behind the steering wheel is not something that allows you to access your device 100% of the time. We already know from our dealers, that decision how the car is connecting to my smartphone or the time behind the steering wheel is distracting people from buying and owning cars. So they decide on cars whether it's allowing me to be mobile and to be accessible through my devices. So for us, it's very important to really understand that generation, that next generation, what they need. So as a mobility company, as an auto manufacturer, as any of who are sitting here, you have to be in that space. It is about being accessible for that client group, and you have to be with them at any point in time. Otherwise, you will not sell your products or services. So what are we doing as a company with 130 years of history, inventing the car, being in a very successful stage right now, good sales numbers, good profit numbers, all of that, it's all looking good right now. But we are in the middle of a transformation from, as Rolf said, from a car company into a mobility company, into a mobility services company. And we didn't start that process just now. We did that roughly 10 years ago when we invented free-floating car sharing with Car2Go, being the largest of these kinds. We've grown that business now substantially over the years. We've added something like MyTaxi. We acquired a company. We merged it with another company. We launched services like multimodal platforms where we combine different modes of transportation. We acquired significant stakes because for us it's very important, to be in as many areas as possible of mobility at this point in time. When I look at those guys that just presented before me, I thought, wow, what kind of a transition I have to do now? So I guess the plan was to bring mobility down to earth a little bit and to ground it because, our task as an industrial company right now is, how do we ensure our strong presence in the mobility market in the future? And we're looking at all kinds of mobility forms. We have invested in Volocopter, a kind of a area that Daniel is in. We look at mobility at all kinds of forms and shapes. So for us, very important, symbolizing through that picture is, again, coming back to the clients and customers of today. You have to learn from them. And our mobility services, like My Taxi Car to Go Removal, allows us to understand them on a day-by-day basis. We're servicing today 20 million customers through those services. We're in 100 cities with those services. And we learn day by day, analyzing data, how they move. You know, we have a very clear picture of cities right now where we're in, how the movement of the people are, and what does that mean to their needs and future demands. So for us, this is now the starting point. And if you transition that into real products that you want to bring on the roads, you know, we work very closely with cities. And this is just one example. Our Movil division just developed on-demand shuttle. There is a couple of those versions on the street right now. Various competitors move into that space. That's the one that you know something like from New York, pooling solutions, because that is ultimately the task that is at hand. We work very closely with cities. And our cities of today, and Zurich is a perfect example. I just learned before I came here, Zurich has even a worse traffic than Stuttgart, and Stuttgart in Germany is under the top 3 cities in Germany. Traffic is the most critical topic from my perspective for the cities, because more and more people move into the cities. The cities are truly facing big challenges. So I think we're all required, you know, to help them and to service them. So from an industrial side, I think we all work together right now to help cities to resolve these issues. And a part of that is that we have to make public transportation more flexible. From our perspective, being a car manufacturer, we still believe clearly that public transportation in cities is still the core domain of transportation. This is still the core aspect of getting people transported through the city. But at the same time, we know and we see from our services, it is a combination of all. You know, people not just use one. They walk, they use the bike, they use scooters, they drive the car, they take the taxi, and so on. They combine it based on their personal needs and situations, life situation. You know, if you go shopping, you have a different need than going to work, and so on. So working with cities, providing these flexible services like that is one of our tasks that we're facing right now. This all looks very traditional when we just heard all what you guys did. So certainly this is just the entry point to the much bigger revolution that we're all facing, and we hear more speakers talking about that. It is autonomous driving, obviously. If this all transitions into electric autonomous driving, then, you know, we have the full big impact into our reality. And obviously, we're not just developing those cars, we're building those cars for the platforms that we're servicing, because a car that can drive itself has to be embedded into an ecosystem, because we have to understand what the customer needs. We want to connect to them in the future. We want to be the provider of these services down the road. And that's why we leverage our platforms in the future. And down the road, this will ultimately change mobility in cities. In a combination with flying mobility, we clearly believe in that as well. But this is still a way to go until we fully replace our existing vehicles that we have today. So let's get full circle now, and let's understand why I mentioned Mike Tyson here. Mike Tyson, a great speaker, he once made a great quote that expresses pretty much what I personally, a lot of my colleagues feel every day. You know, at Daimler we have a lot of plans and we follow those plans. But those plans are only as good as they are sustainable for the future. And you know, you wake up in the morning every day and you get a ton of press releases and you see that every day a new guy is waking up inventing crazy things that we heard before. So what does that mean to us? So you really have to, you know, on one hand, stick to your approach, but at the same time be as adaptable and as flexible to adapt them to what is needed for the future. And one example is, you know, we just announced our intention to move our mobility services with BMW. You know, and this is something, you know, one of our core strategies at Daimler is to become a mobilities company, but we also realize, you know, we have to come together with partners. We have to be able as industry to collaborate, to bring these things together, because down the road, we have the clear intention to not just the last 130 years, but also the next 130 years, we want to shape mobility, and that is why we why we do all these things. Thanks.